a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this incredibly cool episode, my dear friend Jason Pickard comes by and unlocks our abundance archetype. Now, this is what we've been talking about the value exchange, but it does not dilute the importance of individuation. Because on this one as well, we talk AI. He has fascinating concepts about zeitgeist and just the mindset of the time going on now, as well as a fascinating story about his Alex Grey commission. Yeah, that thing on the new Tool album. Yeah, he commissioned Alex Grey and met him and everything, and it's all in here. So all the ways to find Jason, absolutely located down in the show notes. All the ways to find us as well. New t-shirts. Make sure you guys check that out. Other than that, guys, let's get right to the damn thing here with Jason Pickard.
I'm ready.
Let's fucking do it. Here we are. Welcoming to the show, Jason Pickard, my dear friend, dude. It's awesome to see you, my brother. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here with you.
Dude, absolutely. This is fascinating. We, of course, tell everybody, if you don't mind, how we met, my good friend.
Yeah, we met through Ryan Sprague, I believe. Is that not right?
That is correct. Yeah.
My buddy Ryan, he's got an amazing course, Connect with Cannabis. And Ryan actually turned me on to Freedom Builders. And those are the people that helped me create my course, the Abundance Archetype. So I love just meeting people that are, friends of friends and just exploring new opportunities. And that's how we met, just following a hunch.
Right. And it's all alignment. And that's what's so beautiful about this. Ryan and I have actually formed this incredibly cool friendship. And you never know, who you have on, who you'll really connect with. Like you and I, we had a phone call the first time we met, and we just sat there for something like an hour and some change, and just got to know each other, brother. And this is so cool, just that we get to connect like this. And so Ryan is absolutely coming back on. But for the audience, I'm going to go ahead and link his first episode. If you haven't heard it, absolutely go back and listen to our mutual friend here, Ryan Sprague, the real Ryan Sprague, by the way. And that's a funny story that he tells at the beginning. So check that out, link down there. But we're going to talk about you today, Jason. You're fascinating. Absolutely. Your work, your mission of empowerment is something I'm incredibly aligned with. And that's all this is. It's alignment, right? From here on out, it's just this pure, of course, energy. And this is something that I really hope that you will help me articulate to my audience. This just, of course, and let's move on. Let's keep doing it, right? So before we get started here, if you don't mind, all the ways, of course, to find you will be linked down in the show notes. Make sure you'll check that out. You'll know how it works. But for my audience that's not too familiar with you, brother, tell us about you, my friend.
Yeah, so the best way is just to jump into my past a little bit. When I was a kid, I was really interested in asking some big questions. I can remember sitting up at night asking myself, what is death? What is space? What are these things? How could it be the end? How can it not be the end? And I had these really, really deep questions that I just could never get answered. I went through a very mainstream school system, like many of us did, a really, on paper, good public school. I went to the University of Virginia, which is one of the top ranked universities in the world. I majored in finance, and I went out into the world, and I went into Wall Street. And at a very, very young age, I had extreme success. I was 26 years old. I was ranked one of the top 30 traders under 30 years old in the world. By the time I was 26, I had made more money than I ever dreamed of. But at the same time, the paradox was I was completely sick. I was completely broken. I was 330 pounds. And I was in a mental and physical health crisis. I was totally fucked. And I was near death. And I thought to myself, what did I really learn? I don't know how to take care of myself. I know nothing about my body. I don't know anything about how to eat. I don't know anything about how to move. I don't even know how to sleep well. I don't have any play in my life, any love in my life. I don't have any relationships. Yet I have this whole bank account that's big and this sort of successful on paper career. But at the same time, I felt like I had nothing. And so I set out on a quest, and that's when I met Paul Chek, and I've been studying with him for 14 years. Paul Chek is an amazing spiritual teacher and holistic life coach and a shaman and many other things. And I went out into the world and studied with some of the best people, from Tai Chi to shamanism to Native American traditions. I studied tons of Eastern religions and philosophy and psychology and depth psychology and art and music. And I found a way to create a holistic approach to my Wall Street career. I started bringing in organic food. I started having a standing desk. I started meditating during the day. I started doing all of these practices, and I found a way to actually be sustainably successful in a way that actually supported my business and at the same time made me feel really good. This all ended for me in 2019 when I decided to leave the business, leave the industry. I just didn't have a love for it anymore. And I had too much respect for doing things completely all in to realize that if I wanted to spend half my day doing Tai Chi, I was probably not going to be successful in the investing space anymore. And over the last couple of years, I wanted to find a way to answer those same childhood questions that I was thinking about how do you live life well? What does it really mean to be alive, to be a human? And so I set out on this quest to integrate all of this knowledge. I realized there were a lot of great people out there who knew a lot about wealth and trading and investing, but knew nothing about health. And there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of the health things down. They have a good spiritual practice. They have good psychological practices, but they know nothing about creating wealth. They're essentially the starving artist type. And I realized that it was my purpose, my reason for being here was to be a bridge between two worlds. And that's what I spent the last year doing, sitting, diving deep. How do I take all of these things that I learned from Paul Tudor Jones, one of the best investors of all time, to Paul Chek in the holistic space, and put them together in a way that I could offer to the world? And that's essentially where I'm at and why we're here.
Brother man, brother man, brother man. If you could not have come on at a better time, the value exchange model is absolutely front of mind. The idea of reframing value and what it really means, and then also what money means, and also what it means to be wealthy, and also that you can be of spiritual service and still live an abundant lifestyle, live the type of lifestyle you want. And actually, you can be of greater service because you have more resources available to you to be of greater service. There are so many reasons why I feel that the idea that you must be poor and spiritual have to go together. Like you can't be affluent and help people. And this psychology, the psyop that's implanted into us at that young, impressionable age, that's like, oh, that person has a Ferrari, you must be a piece of shit. Like this idea has been just pounded in us. Also, these programs of you must work hard to achieve wealth. You don't deserve it if X, Y, and Z. We can't because of whatever in your family. And there's all these bags thrown on you, none of which prepare you for what the real interaction and engagement with the energy of money is. And this is why I'm so fascinated by what you do, dude. You have my complete attention on this. So this idea of scarcity that's implanted in people, do you mind speaking to that?
Yeah, I want to. You just said so many things that my mind is just jumping all over the place. I don't want to.
We roll.
I want to hit all of them.
Hit them all.
I mean, first of all of the great religions in the world were all started with money. Buddha was a prince. Jesus apparently had millions of dollars of essential oils and frankincense and myrrh thrown at his feet at his birth, right? Moses was living with the king of Egypt. Muhammad's wife was a very successful businesswoman. This idea that these things need to be separate are ridiculous because all of the foundations of the spiritual religions, the great religions of the world, were all founded with money. The word wealth itself, when you dig into it etymologically, comes from the root word well-being. Wealth comes from well-being, and well-being comes from the root word wheel, and wheel comes from chakras, the literal wheels or the energy centers in our body. So to be truly wealthy, one must have well-being. To have well-being, we must participate in the wheel of life. We must be focusing on net impact versus net worth. So many of us look up online and we say to ourselves, what's the net worth of this person? What's the net worth of this person? That is one of the worst things you should do. The list should be, what's the net impact? How much impact has this person had on the world? Not how much money they have sitting in a bank account, not how much money they've possessed. How is their money performing? How are they acting in a reciprocal way? Not what's their return now, what's their 7-generational return? How embodied are they? When they are focusing on all of their energy centers of their body, when they are focusing on their chakras, that is true wealth. When we can take the power, when we know that who we really are is the one looking through the eyes of our body. When we connect with that infinite, indivisible, immortal source, we use that to become fully embodied, to engage in the wheel of life, to create well-being, then we're truly wealthy.
Yes. Yes, there it is. And it's this idea of the investment in energy and alignment. This is where it truly comes in. This is where the rubber meets the road on manifestation, on any practice that you have with meditation over money, with any visualization practice. This is where the actualization and the inspired action, this is where it goes from, okay, I know I need to integrate this healthily, but also I need someone to help me with that. And that's your bridge. You said it perfectly. You're the bridge that we're all ready for now, because we've all been feeling this way about it. And I've been, like I said, I've been screaming about the value exchange and that the whole thing's a damn psyop for you to be poor, and that it's so that you don't have access, to the most abundant, one of the most impactful resources here. Which again, also from its perspective, like think about money's perspective of us. It's had this really toxic relationship with how it's been utilized, what it's been used for, how it's been apprehended. It's got sort of a, us welcoming money back in with an embrace and with an honesty with it is, I think, key. And this is part of this, man, because what you do is you empower folks with the information that's valuable to folks. And this is, again, what the value is all about. Outstanding, Jason.
Money is another interesting one to look at from the etymological perspective, which for anyone who doesn't use an etymological dictionary, I highly recommend it. It can be a very cool detective way to look at what are the root words, what are the subliminal messages behind the words that we're speaking. And so when you look at money, it comes from the root of the Sanskrit word manas. And so we are not mankind. That's a patriarchal definition. We are manas kind. Manas are what separates us from animals, which is our ability to think, feel, will, and have memory. And therefore, money, looking from that construct, we understand that money has a thinking, a mental, an emotional, a feeling, and actually a memory and a will to it. Because if I had $10 million and I lost 9 and I had $1 million, I'd feel poor. But if I had nothing and you gave me $1 million, I'd feel rich. Money has a will and a memory and a thinking, feeling, mental, emotional construct. How we empower others can be a form of money. How we use our energy can be a form of money. Being a mentor, being a friend, being compassionate, our presence, our attention, these are our greatest units of money, right? And so this is a really, really important thing to think about, that there are many different forms of money. It's essentially energy and information, and that's essentially who we are. And the whole idea of this scarcity mindset comes from, I think, is that we're looking for abundance in the wrong place. Often we're looking for abundance outside of ourselves. But the word abundance comes from the root word unda, which comes from the spirit, the personified laws of nature, the intelligence of water. The water is literally unda us. Abundance is unda us. And so when we take our thinking, our feeling, our willing, and our memory, and we make a reversal from using that to look at all of the objects in our world that we're chasing and thinking that those are going to bring us abundance, to reversing and making ourselves the subject, the object of our focus of abundance, we truly become abundant because we realize that abundance comes from the inside out.
100%. Like just everything you're saying, man. So what do you think happened with money? Do you subscribe? Have you heard of like the Babylonian money magic concept and this idea that really there's this whole money spell going on this entire time, and really it can be broken just simply by our awareness of it? And so this is really what I think is happening here. You're breaking the Babylonian money spell, which is cool. It's really ancient, and it was sort of a massive apprehension as far as our construct and consciousness and engagement with a thing called currency or money, right? Mm-hmm. So how do we empower people, man? And not jumping ahead here, but I'm just ready to hear this from you. Like what can folks do? What's your approach on this next step?
Yeah, a lot of us, I don't know specifically the Babylonian model, but the reality is that most of our beliefs about abundance and about money come from things that we have inherited. If we're lucky, we may get a monetary inheritance. Our parents may leave us a car or a house or a few bucks. Some of us not, some of us more. But what we all get is a psychological inheritance. We are tasked with the unmet needs and unmet desires and unfulfilled life of our parents. And so if our parents came from a poverty mindset, we've inherited that. And it's not too far back in the future that our people have come from the times of famine, have come from depressions, have come from times of persecution. And that is living inside of us. You know, the part of us that's conscious, that's trying to go out in the world and figure things out and make a life for us is the part of the iceberg that's above the water. We've all seen that analogy of the tip of the iceberg. But what's 95% is actually below the surface. And that part is like the supercomputer that's driving everything we do, right? It's the part of us that's digesting our breakfast right now. It's the part of us that's breathing us, that's pumping our heart, that takes care of the million billion chemical reactions in our body while we're sleeping at night. That's the supercomputer. Those are generated by our belief systems. And most of us are thinking the same thoughts every single day. And 90% of them are negative. And almost all of them are the same thoughts we had yesterday. We must be willing to wake up and look below the hood, look below the surface of the water. What are the belief systems that we've inherited? What were the things that our parents told us? In our family, you could only be successful if you're a lawyer or a doctor. You'll never be successful as a painter or as a musician or doing this or that, right? We must go in there and realize that most of what we believe about abundance, most of what we believe about our life actually wasn't ours. It was given to us. We did not come in with that. And in the same way, we can rewrite that code. So we must look at what are our prevailing thoughts? How do we ask new questions? How do we look at our belief systems? All of those things are creating our thoughts, our feelings, emotions, or our actions. Paul Chek says, no belief system worth living is not worth questioning. We must question everything that we're living. We're walking around, I believe this and I believe that. Well, great, but are you not brave enough to question it if you're worth living your whole life doing it? And so this starts with what are our ideas about what we've inherited and what is working for us and what do we want to change?
Why do you think money is such the big one? Because when we talk about shadow work and integration, it's always back to worthiness, money. You have to work hard, and then we hear folks say things like, one of the most triggering things for me is a sticky note. I've had it for well over 2 years that I completely embody now, by the way. I get it. Is that things come to me easily and effortlessly. Like, why is it that one the big struggle? Like I overcame like physical trauma with my parents, like all kinds of shit, just easy. It was the worthiness one. It was that seems to be the big one, because that seems to be the big money maker for those in the manifestation game is money. Everyone wants more money, but really what they want is freedom. But why do you think that the money component to it has been so hammered in?
I think it's a cultural thing. I think it's this American dream, this no pain, no gain. You have to work harder. We've been given this idea that we have to work for 30 or 40 years until we can achieve this concept of retirement when we're 65 or 67, even though the average expected life is 70 years old. What are we working for? The idea that maybe we'll have 5 years to enjoy what we've done. We have to realize that if we want to be great, if we want to be truly successful and we want to enjoy our life, we have to do what we love to do. If you look at all of the people out there in the world that are masters, Bruce Lee, Einstein, anybody, they've all absolutely loved what they've done. Their life becomes a labor of love. And in that way, it's sustainable. And in that way, money effortlessly flows to them. We all know what happens when somebody does their job well. When we go to a restaurant and somebody is a great waiter, we happily give them a better tip.
Yeah, you're like, shut up and take my money.
Yeah, we want to reward people that do what they love to do and do their job well. And the same thing works for us. And what I've realized that it's not about time under tension. We go into the gym and then we think it's like more reps, more time. But in reality, it's time attention. It's time intention. How are we using our time? How are we being creative about our time? And how are we balancing so that we can actually do what we love to do and feel good while doing it? If not, we're working for somebody else our entire life. We're literally fulfilling somebody else's process instead of fulfilling ours. We must realize that at any single moment, an 18-wheeler can knock us off the road. We can't be living for this promise of a future that may never come. We have to start living now. And when we truly do that, we can actually start experiencing abundance and freedom now in this moment, instead of this idea that when we're 65, we may have a few good years to do that.
You nailed it. And more than ever, like if I can impart anything to anyone, I'm living proof for, dude, quit your job, like stop doing what you don't want to do. There are moves you can make, and I'm sure Jason can help us with this, but there are moves you can make to make sure that this is more of a seamless process and you don't have to just give up everything and go nuts, which is great about this. Before, you would just collapse everything and then you'd figure it out after some dramatic overhauls, but there's sort of ways to replace things easily. It's your choice to do so, which is wonderful. But man, I could not agree with you more that I knew when I quit my job, I had one certain fact. And that was it. I had no clue, dude. I had no members signed up. I had no money coming in on this thing. I was just like, I'm doing it. I had one known fact. I would hate myself if I didn't. And that was the absolute truth. And so I was like, well, shit. I mean, if that's all I got to go on, then we're going on that. And I've never been more empowered. So if you need more people than Jason and I to sit here and say, hey, be empowered, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fucking fine. Just take that leap. It's calling to you. I know it is. There are people out there right now that are just shaking in their car from their job or something, just pissed off. Look, take a deep breath, first of all, with me here. 1, 2, 3. And then secondly, know that this is your shit. You're the game maker. Be empowered here. And that's what Jason's here to do. That's why we have called him here to be with us today.
One of the beautiful things you can do is use your death as your spiritual advisor.
Ooh.
When we can really look at our death, death is such a marginalized thing in our culture. We never want to face it. Yet it's the one thing that we all have in common. We all know it's coming. But research shows that when you can engage with your death now, you can actually truly live, because you can start making decisions and values based off life. So one of the good things that you can ask yourself is, if I had 1 week to live, what would I want to do with my time? And I can assure you that it's not likely that you're going to sit there on your deathbed and have regrets of, I wish I worked more hours for somebody else. I wish I spent more time doing this or that. You're only going to regret not doing what you love to do. You're only going to regret not spending more time with your loved ones. You're only going to regret not leaving a bigger legacy or leaving the world a better place. You're not going to regret that you didn't work overtime for your boss on a job that you hated, right? And so we can use this on a daily basis. We can look over our left shoulder at our death that's just waiting there for the right moment to tap us and say to our death, what would you do in this situation? If you were about to tap me on my shoulder and tell me that this was the end, because it can come at any moment, what would I do now? How would I live today? What job would I do now, knowing that this is the last job I'm going to have? How would I leave my mark? And how would I want to spend my time?
Dude, we just got back from Utah, and in Utah, they were doing, Brandon Powell was taking us through a few breathing exercises. Have you've done breath work where you just really go deep? Oh my God, dude.
And so, I saw your pictures from your trip on your Instagram. They look super cool.
It was insane. You've got to go with us. Next one, August of 2024, the 1st through the 5th, we're already going. Like, you've got to go. We'll set this up either way. Anyway, we were taking through these breath exercises. I'd never done that before. Now, I've done a lot of psychedelics. I've been a psychonaut for well over 20 years. And this was that. It was like a parabolic flight in and out of the spirit world is how I picture it. When I need to catch my breath and, do those big ones and just kind of reset, then there would be this moment where it all came flooding back. It was this euphoric. And on the last day, dude, the third day, I would be sitting there and I could feel, and I know this sounds like whatever it sounds like. I've just never experienced something like this. I'm physically in my body. And I know this, I know my anchored in my body, but I could feel inside me like rock, like something was trying to get loose. It felt like my body was trying to come out. And so it's this dance with death that we were doing there. And then the same thing when we did the cold plunges, man, I did not want to do that. I got in, hyperventilated immediately. Brandon ran around, made eye contact with me like he was looking at someone drowning in freezing water, because that's what it felt like. It feels like you're dying. And that's what he says. We tap death on the shoulder all the time. And it was this idea of just that how easy it is to just not be here is fascinating to me. And so really exactly to what you said, we were given actual perspective on this. And it was so empowering, man, just to what you said, because then you're like, well, shit, if it's that easy, I could feel like that. Number one, I want to do that more. But number two, there's a lot there to be learned. And just like you said, man, it's something I've been saying forever. You could just get hit by a bus tomorrow is the example I use. I like the truck, but same thing. It's been a perspective I've had for a very long time that this could just be over. And that if, you could do anything you want, which you can, then what would that be? And that's what we're asking people here.
Yeah. Yeah. And, in my course, I take people into a lot of this importance of getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Death is an uncomfortable thing to think about. Cold plunges can be uncomfortable. But isn't it fascinating that despite what your mind is telling you about going into the icy cold water, that when you actually get out, the result is that you feel much better than before you got in? And so what does that really tell us about our fears around doing things that are uncomfortable for us, but how much they actually are rewarding for us? So, I say to people, try something out new. Go in a cold plunge, go in a sauna, do a deeper meditation, do a deeper breath work, go over your edges slightly. Tell somebody how much you truly feel and love for them that you're holding back from. It's that feeling like we're at a wedding and we want to dance, but we're nervous.
Yeah.
When we want to sing, but we want to hold it back. Try a new food. Try out a new position in bed. Switch roles with your partner and try out, even if you're the fun parent, become the disciplinarian. If you're always the one that, waits for your partner to initiate sex, try initiating it. It's this idea that every day, if we can push ourselves and challenge ourselves a little bit, we can actually move more towards flow states and abundance. Why? Because research shows that it's actually not the easy win. It's not actually winning that brings us satisfaction. It's growth and discovery and learning. Once you have a minimum amount of money, once you have your survival needs met, more money actually doesn't equate to life satisfaction. What does is actually being in the flow, doing something you love to do, challenging yourself, going over your edges. That's what actually brings happiness. And it can be scary, which is exactly what your mind's saying. Don't jump in the water. You're going to drown and you're going to freeze. This is going to be uncomfortable. But once you get over that, you realize how liberating it is and how good it actually feels and how your body really wanted the cold despite what your mind was telling you. And think about how that same metaphor is happening for everything in our life. Why not send a note in the mail instead of sending an email? Go over and tell somebody you work with how much you appreciated something they do instead of sending a text message. These small little things, little ways to go over your edge systematically each day can be really empowering and ways we can create more abundance for ourselves.
I like that going over the edge, and you've nailed it with this. We refer to it as pattern interruption. We're talking about the exact same thing here: brushing your teeth with the left hand or your opposite hand, whatever, taking a different way to work, all those things. But I like how engaged you are about the personal contact over some easy, simple digital fix, especially when it's in proximity and accessible, right? Absolutely outstanding, man. So with the importance of everything that we're talking about here, we are still building a community. We are very tribe forward, but we also want to talk about the importance of individuation, because a lot of people think that, some folks have mentioned that we're going to be like this hive mind and like that telepathy is going to occur. It's going to be this Borg thing, but it's nothing like that. And actually the power of individuation is so much more valuable. So spend some time with us on that.
Well, it's pretty common in some of the spiritual communities that we probably run with or get exposed to do what might be called a spiritual bypassing of the power of the individual. We hear things, oh, it's all one, man. Or you go into, a Buddhist place and it's all nothing, man. Everything's empty. Well, yeah, you see, you got to hold a much bigger worldview. Yes, we are all one. Yes, there is emptiness. But at the same time, If those things exist, bipolarity of everything, of night versus day, of white versus black, man versus woman, there must also be the individual. If there's no individual, if it's all one, who's here having this conversation? And so, yes, we come from the same place. In essence, we are the same. We are all one big family, yet the power of the individual is so important. We are indivisible, individual, immortal beings. And to the extent that we can actually step into learning more and actually bring ourselves, our wholeness out, we are actually working for the entire planet when we do that. If you want to be truly successful, you must bring out all of your unique skills, gifts, and talents to the world. And why is that? There's nobody else in the history of the world who has what you have. There's nobody else that has your fingerprints. There are no two snowflakes that are alike. When I was on Wall Street, Paul Tudor Jones, who's one of the best investors ever, would ask every aspiring employee, tell me how it is that you make money in 1 to 2 sentences at a 5th grade reading level. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Do you know what makes you great? And he knew that somebody who knew that was going to be successful professionally. And I'll take it a step farther. We must know that professionally, what creates stable, repeatable returns for us, what makes this podcast, what makes expanding reality great. There are tens of thousands of podcasts out there.
2.5 million.
Okay. There are 2.5 million podcasts. The last thing that I saw was that most of them don't get past the 10th episode.
Something like that, yeah.
You need to know what it is that makes expanding reality different than the other 2.5 million. If you want this to be as successful as it is, you clearly know what your niche is, what your alpha is, or your differentiating factor. But if you didn't know that, you would not have made it past the 10th episode. But we also need to know that about our life. What diets work for us? Not what we read in a diet book that work for somebody else. What works for us? There are 100,000, 200,000 diet books out there, but there are more obese people than ever. Why? Because we need to know what diet works for us. What works for somebody else won't work for us. What movement practice works for us? We walk into a CrossFit or even a yoga studio, we're doing the same workout that 50 other people are doing without anyone knowing about our unique body type, our injuries, what we ate for breakfast, how much stress we're under, what our goals are. We must create individualized exercise programs, individualized sleep programs. Do we need 6, 7, 8, 9? What time do we need to go to bed? What brings us joy and play in our life? What kind of relationships do we want? What kind of spiritual practices do we want? How do we learn best? We have to become a master of ourself. And when we do that, we can be truly abundant and successful. That is the power of the individual. And I just want to say one thing about this. This can be a painful process at first. If you go into any of the historical spiritual texts, if you look at the story of Jesus, the story of Buddha, the story of Arjuna and Krishna, there's always an exile. The hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. There's always a venture out into the unknown. You must go from the familiar to the unfamiliar, from the known to the unknown world, to cultivate the elixir of life, which is finding that personhood, that individuality, and then you take it back to the community and you share your gifts. And so this can be difficult. It can be difficult to break away from normalcy, to break away from what your parents want of you, what your friends want of you, what society wants of you. But Carl Jung says the ideal aim of the unsuccessful is normalcy. To be normal means to be in a box. And if you want to be extraordinary, if you want to be truly great, you must realize you are not a data set. You are not a number, and you must find out what makes you truly great. What are your gifts, skills, and talents? What's your bigger reason for being here? And do everything you can to bring that forward.
2 paths diverged in the woods. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Made all the difference. Frank Sinatra says, I did it my way.
Mm-hmm.
My way. He didn't say, I did it somebody else's way. I wasn't a part of anybody else's plan. For better or for worse, I did it my way. And that's why Frank Sinatra was Frank Sinatra and not some unknown singer.
You know what I love about our tribe as well is we empower the individuation. That's the point here is we want you to be the most you and most authentic you, not to do what I'm doing and copy what I'm doing, not to copy what Jason's doing, to be inspired by what we're doing and to create your own. And we're here with you as part of your community and tribe. But it's this idea of just complete conformity and must dress this and must look like that. Anything that's yelling at you that you must, you probably don't. If you resonate with it, then great. But if not, we would love to empower you to be you. And that's what's the most ironic thing is to fit in with us. You need to be you and not us, right? So it's like this non-carbon copy standard that was valuable. And it was valuable in the ego structures. And I suppose it was necessary in the way that it was to show us that you can still fit in, but even more empowered by being authentically you.
Yeah. Your education up until this point, and I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the metaphorically you, but our education up until this point has not prepared us for this. Our education system was based on a manufacturing model. It was based on doing linear things, not teaching us how to think, but teaching us what to think. You're going to do one thing over and over and over and over and over again until you do that one thing really well, right? That's not how we evolved in nature. I participated in a persistence hunt where I was living with a tribe in Namibia, and we went hunting for 2 weeks by running after animals, endurance running after animals. What was so unique about that was two things. One, the Bushmen knew from tens and tens and probably more thousands of years what their competitive edge was. They knew that what made them unique and great was not beating an animal in a sprint. They didn't have superior weapons. Their competitive edge was endurance running. They knew that animals must stop to pant, to cool off, and can't carry water. So if they just were consistent, like the tortoise and the hare, they just kept running and running, not fast, but just consistent, 20 miles, 30 miles, 40 miles. Eventually they would tire the animal out and they would survive. That's how they survived for tens of thousands of years. In the same way, they went out each day without a plan. They didn't have a plan of what they were going to do. They were responding to the track. They were responding to a sight, a smell, a sound, the position, the direction of the wind. They would see a plant on the ground. They'd stop. They'd dig it up. They'd see another plant. Oh, I can use that to set a trap or to do this or that. It was completely random and responding to what was going on in the moment. We've become so narrow and objective, looking at just one thing or looking at our iPhone, right? And focusing in on one thing. But that's not how we evolved. We evolved to be in this more open state, have a more diffused and immersed and an open state of awareness. We evolved using randomness and seeing our connection to all things, using the capacity of our dreaming and our imagination, and then taking it into form. You know, when I went to school, my best friend who built my house that I'm living in, that we just moved into a few months ago, we went to high school together. And when I was in third grade, I knew that I wanted to become this business guy already. And I looked at him and he was like doing everything with his hands. He was fixing everything in our house that my dad couldn't fix. And I was like, dude, one day I think you're going to build my house for me. Like I just had this vision. It was clear to me in third grade that this was going to happen. But we went into school. We went into elementary school together, middle school together, and high school together. And we got the exact same education. Nobody took him aside and said, hey, dude, you're great with your hands. Why don't we give you a mentorship with this builder or this architect or this engineer? Hey, dude, you're good with numbers. Why don't we teach you this or teach you that? Or you really like music. Let's help you excel over there. We all took English. We all took math. We all took Spanish, the same exact curriculum. The word education comes from the Greek word educare, which means to draw out from within. And educare comes from the Sanskrit word adhikari. Adhikari means a kind of education where they would first look at the astrological birth chart of a person. Now, we think this is kind of woo-woo. I mean, not us, but like our society thinks that's ridiculous. But that is just real science. That is looking at probabilities, studying people for thousands and thousands of years, at the positions of the planets of their birth, and then just collecting data and seeing, okay, when the sun is here and Jupiter's here and this is there and that's there, 80% of the time, this person has this type of body type and has this kind of propensity to be in this category of profession. So they start with that. Then they look at, what did the child actually love to do? What is this child naturally called to? And then they geared their education around rites and rituals and practices to challenge and test and to give them mentorship to bring that out from within. But our education system has completely reversed that. We're dumping more and more on us from without.
Every now and then a guest will come on and help me rewrite paradigms. You've done this several times throughout this, but I want to point out a very big one that I know rang the bell in a few others as well. This idea of this predisposition or this predetermination to humanity at its core to be enslaved and to desire direction. Thank you, by the way, for this, because the way you were describing the tribes and this sounds like heaven to me, dude. Determining, or at least giving a glance at and perhaps giving the skills and advanced educations to something particular in a birth chart. Again, this is observation. This is real science. So this idea of living in more of a flow state, animals don't go like clockwork and okay, we're here. There's cycles, but it's nothing like what the cattle that they wanted us to be with the Rockefeller Institution, right? With the education system. I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. And they got it for a little bit, but I mean, they got it for a little bit only so that we could see how truly powerful we are. So the last whatever I truly see as a gift to us now by being able to see that it's not something we prefer. But this idea of installing this really rigid system, I see it now from a bigger perspective that you've offered us here, because it seems again that they knew this early on, that a flow state, that everyone's intuitively going to be guided to do something and they're going to be great at it and they're going to be unstoppable. So what we need to do is just put everyone in the same category and pop everything on a same standard, educate to the lowest possible nature. I think I remember reading somewhere that all newspapers are written in an 8th grade reading level. That's it, because that's the max. And even some people find that intimidating. Yeah. So what I'd say is that it's a deliberate thing, obviously, but now it makes more sense so we can empower. Also to this, man, to the education, I'm so glad you brought this up. I have a whole community of folks, which I can't wait to introduce you to, who are here to very much so empower parents with children to get out of that system. Yeah. Now, something again similar to what you're talking about, a more flow type of environment. It's a whole mindset, and so you're so useful in every area, man. So just thank you for that paradigm smasher, because this idea of we're Anunnaki and we're just designed to dig gold out of the ground, and that's just why we are easily to overslave. Thank you for that, because that's again one of those things like Daddy Longlegs, the most venomous spider in the world. It just can't penetrate your skin. Bullshit. But I said it for a long time because I didn't look into it. So what I'm saying now is that you've helped me smash a paradigm that's incredibly empowering, because it's like this default, like, well, maybe some humans are predetermined to be that way, but I'm not, or it's in me, but I fought it. But what you're saying is it's a paradigm smasher altogether, that it's a non sequitur, that it's a non-default, because this isn't the way it was. And it's actually more of a psyop. Beautiful. Yeah.
And I want to share something to take that a little bit deeper.
Please.
It's easy to point fingers at things that are disturbing to us or that are challenging to us. But in the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu says the government reflects the people. And I'll take you on a little journey here. But let's just say, for example, we have some strong feelings against a leader. Like Trump is an easy example. Some people love him, some people hate him. Some people think he's the devil. Some people think he's, a hero, right? It doesn't matter. But let's just say we turn him into a villain, or we turn Putin into a villain, or anybody for that matter. The education system. If I'm working with Trump, I have to realize that if he disturbs me, there's some part of him that's still inside of me that's a projection. So I have to ask myself, where am I a little bit Trump-like? Where am I a little bit egotistical, patriarchal? Right? And in the same way, I can flip it around and ask myself, where do I need a little bit more of that in my life? Where do I need to speak my mind without caring about how people react? How do I need to tell my truth more? We're all out there hating Putin for everything he's doing on Ukraine. And yes, it's horrible. But how are we not looking at how we have nuclear bombs and missiles pointing at Russia from all sides of their borders? At the same time, how are we colonizing ourselves? How are we being colonized by social media, by the news, by what we're thinking and digesting, right? We're out there vilifying viruses without thinking about how viruses make up more parts of our body than we have cells. You know, everything that we cancel on the outside is a reflection of something we're canceling on the inside. And so if we're in this system of colonization around our education system, how we put ourselves into a box, how have we perpetuated that? How have we not stood up for our own values, for wanting something different, for recognizing that our leaders who we're pissed off at, our education system that we're not happy with, is a reflection of where we are at? And where do we need to start on the individual level, making these kinds of changes towards individuation? What can we do today to think outside the box? What can we do today to learn something new? What can we do today to eradicate the colonization in ourselves, to not become a slave to the system? And in that way, we can make a bigger difference on the total for all people. So, I mean, it's really easy to point fingers, but reality is we have to realize that anything that's out there is a reflection of the collective of where we're at. And so if we think Trump's immature, well, sure, he is, but that's the average of our country is at that level of social maturity, right? And so we need to start with us, the individual. It all comes back to us, the individual.
Been saying it, folks. I didn't have a mind because of that, but thank you. That's it. It's all you, right? What was the Temple of Delphi? The only thing written up there, know thyself. That's it. That's the only wisdom they had for you when you made that trick. Hey, do you know yourself? No? Oh, turn around, come back and come back. Let us know when you do. And then when you know yourself, you can come back and you can say, hey, I know myself. I appreciate it. And that's honestly the biggest secret here. It's what's so fascinating about this is figuring out your relationship with you. And it is something that I've just so harped on because it is the biggest game changer for me. That's when it all kicked off. I was like, who are you, little guy? You know, what's going on up there? How do you feel about things? Reevaluating paradigms from a very honest perspective. And it's folks like you that empower us to do this. So it feels like it's time that it's a switch. It's a age of Aquarius, like the sun's changing, like the Schumann resonance, all this stuff, you know, and the things now that have been going on for so damn long that we've heard a few folks from back in the day, William Cooper being one of them, you know, folks like that would stand up and say, hey, something's going on here that's not right. But it felt few and far between. Now, do you think this was a connectivity issue because now we have the internet and it's just all over? Or do you perhaps think it's an awareness capacity thing? Like now we're able to perceive things from bigger vantage points.
Yeah. You saying, what was the question in terms of why are we so confused right now?
Actually, the shift, the counter, why are folks so aware of what's going on in the Illumination? Like things have never been more apparent out in the open. And it seems even the psyops that are going on in the news or in NASA and stuff, we're like, guys, it's so obvious, you know, and it's almost meant to be obvious. Now, then the question, of course, to add to this, to elaborate just a little bit, would be, has it always been that obvious and we just couldn't see it because we weren't able of that capability of awareness, or did it shift to be more obvious so that we would wake up faster?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So, I mean, gosh, there's a few things there. I mean, that's one of the gifts of COVID, right? I mean, gosh, what a talk about a psyops, but like the reality is that people are paying more attention to their health now. People are starting to question the truth more because they've seen, okay, what these people were saying is not really necessarily what actually happened. Okay. And people are taking it into their own hands. So the extent is that, you know, when you study in the model of Lucifer and Ahriman, is that what people don't understand about this idea of the devil is that the devil is actually God's greatest protector, because without the dark side, we would never know the light, right? And so it can be really hard for us to think about the people out there that are disturbing to us. You know, maybe the Bill Gates of the world, if we you know, we're thinking that he's doing, you know, pushing some kind of agenda or all these kind of horrible things that are out there. But the reality is we never would have the opportunity to know the light without the dark. And so these things come together. And so to the extent that we're pushing ourselves down into the darkness, we have the same possibility to go to the light. You know, if you look at the tarot card, the Hangman, number 12, it's a person that is hanging upside down, but the card is all meant to be flip the card out upside down and the person's going to the light. I commissioned a piece of art by Alex Gray that is a very, very cool long story called The Great Turn, which if for anybody who's out there, you should check it out on, it was his most recent piece called The Great Turn. It's a 10-foot by 8-foot masterpiece that I have on loan to his new Visionary Art Museum that's opening up on the beginning of June in Wappinger Falls, New York. But it shows a picture of a man, or like a being, really, not like a man, but of a being. Half his body is reaching up while the other half is reaching down to the ground. Carl Jung says, no tree, no man or woman can reach to heaven until its roots reach to hell.
Yeah.
All of the experiences of my life, being 330 pounds, being near death, being obese, that's what made me who I am today. If we look back at our life and look at all of the difficult moments, we realize that those were essential parts on the path to becoming who we are. Even in investing, Paul Tudor Jones says, blowing up or having a big failure is a necessary stop in becoming a great investor, because you'll know what you never will do again if you learn from your mistakes. It's a part of an evolution. So in that way, yes, I do think the age of Aquarius, I do think we're evolving to these new times. But at the same time, you know, I think that the darkness that is so apparent is also bringing out the light. But the reality is, just like that Great Turn painting, it's up to us which one to choose and which one we want to carry forward.
Awesome. And I definitely want to hear that story, by the way. Okay. So I want to talk to you about the power of dreaming and how to use it.
Well, look, dreaming is such a powerful tool. Okay. And most of us marginalize this. We walk around looking at life like it's a literal thing. You know, it'd be like reading poetry, but not reading between the lines, taking each word literally, which is one of the problems that people have reading sacred scriptures. If you're reading the Bible, it should be read metaphorically. I have a beautiful book about the Bible read as a dream, which are how these things are supposed to be read. They're being read symbolically. And dreaming is like that. And in the same way, this is how we actually communicate. If I say to you, hey, can you get a red apple? You have an image of a red apple in your mind. You can't actually communicate with me without having these images. And so this is the way that we communicate, but we've kind of dropped this and kind of got only into this consensus reality version of the world. But Carlos Castaneda in the books of Don Juan calls this the second attention. When you can realize that we are participating in a dreaming universe, that the whole universe is actually dreamt into existence, and that it's actually, there's an intelligence behind everything that we can actually participate in. Your dinner doesn't cook itself for you. Your house didn't just build itself. Rocks don't just make walls by themselves. You wouldn't walk into the greatest museum there is. You wouldn't walk into the Louvre and say, oh, this art just miraculously got here on the wall. You'd realize that there was a creator, there's an intelligence behind it. You know, we can study how many times a hummingbird can flap its wings, but we don't ask, what was the intelligence that created the hummingbird? When we tap into this intelligence, when we tap into the dreaming nature of reality, we can access so much more intelligence. And this is so important because we have more AI than ever right now. And what AI can do really well is left brain logical, linear, literal analysis. It can search the internet in amazing capacities, you know, from what it has access to, which is obviously highly censored these days, but it can go out there and it can pull up from a whole ton of information. But what it can't do, it doesn't have the 5 billion years of intelligence in our body. That is the most incredible market research there ever was. The wisdom and intelligence in our body, AI can't access that. It doesn't have a heart. It can't access infinite intelligence and the power and discernment of our heart. AI can make a nuclear bomb just as easy as it can cure cancer. right? But it needs a heart to discern which one is more life affirmative than the other. But the most powerful thing at all that I'm calling official intelligence, real intelligence with a capital I, is the power to dream. When we go to sleep at night, we don't have to do anything, and we can engage with a specific algorithm designed just for ourselves to show us everything we're missing in our life, how we can grow into the greatest version of ourselves, what is our shadow material, and where is our full potential. And we don't just have to go to sleep at night to dream. We can use our flirts, synchronicities, things that catch our attention, songs that pop into our head, body symptoms, fantasies, the list goes on. All of these different things. There's a dreaming nature to reality that we can engage with. And when we do, life becomes so much more rich and full of information that we can actually use in our life, our relationships, but also our work.
It's like marrying in all the energies together. And it's a tool, like you said, it's a companion. It's something that's there constantly with you. It's a visualization tool. It's an affirmative action tool to where you can sit there and say, okay, well, I've got all the power here and I can dream this into existence. Anytime you play the what if game, it's always what's the best thing that can happen, right? So these are just actionable things that you can apprehend in this state, which is beautiful, man. Like you said, a lot of folks daydream. 99% of it never happens. Oh no, this is going to happen, or I'm going to tell this person this, and then they're going to say that, and I'm going to say this. Doesn't happen. But you're giving a lot of energy to those timelines that some part of you is living in. But why wouldn't you want to just commit all of that and focus it? Because again, like you said, a lot of it's subconscious. Actually, a bunch of it's subconscious. So you don't even know it's occurring. You just get these feelings from it. And so something you do again is point this out to where you are empowered to apprehend and alchemize it in that moment. It's a tool. It's a beautiful thing. I want to ask you something about, because you brought up AI. I'm just curious about, and you can speculate wildly here, dude. We don't, say, oh, but you said it. So AI seems to be, I think, one of the bigger concerns would be from folks that say that the people teaching AI how to treat us aren't the kind of representatives we want for humanity, right? So like the old thing of take me to your leader, the aliens land and we're like, actually we don't really want you talking to them. They don't represent us. So remember, they shoot at you. We don't. So things like that. So it seems like AI, do you think AI would figure that out? Or do you think it would be bound to its program? And let's say it's programmed to just be the lizard turds. Okay. Do you think that there's also maybe then another AI program that will create that sort of reflects more of our values of the law of one type of a thing? And then maybe there's some sort of dichotomy that emerges there, some war perhaps. It goes super deep. But I mean, do you think then that AI could go, actually, these people have heart and these people are just trying to destroy things? Or then would it just say, I know this is a bunch of questions, you could just free flow on this. Or then would it just say, you know what, this is all too confusing. Some people are great. Some people are turds. We're just going to nuke the whole place and start over, It's a lot in there, Jason.
Yeah. I don't really know. What I think is interesting, which I can comment on, that I don't know if this answers your question or not, but you tell me, is that one of the issues with AI, in my opinion, while an incredible technology, I mean, you can't deny it, it doesn't look at the individual. When you walk into a doctor's office, the average doctor is listening to your story for 7 seconds before they interrupt you. When you even walk in to get your hair cut, how long does the hairstylist actually spend with you talking about what do you really want to create and express in yourself before they start cutting your hair? Oh, you want to get a number 2? Okay, let's go. 1, 2 on the sides, bzz, right? I mean, we've killed the individual. Marie-Louise von Franz, one of the most famous Jungian analysts, says that if you take 2 tons of stones, and the 2 tons of stones have an average weight of 20 pounds per stone, if you weighed every single stone in the 2 tons, you might not find one stone that is exactly 20 pounds. You might find 22, 19, 18.4, 19.6, whatever it is. But we are living in a world where we're looking at people like a data set, where we're looking at people like a number. And we are all unique, complex individuals that cannot be set into a data set with 50 or 100 or whatever variables. We have infinite intelligence. We have infinite variety. There's nobody else ever like us who has had our experiences, who has our DNA, who has our makeup, our mixture of the elements, our dreams, our traumas, our everything. And that's where I think AI is limited, because it will never compete with the individuality and the complexity of a human being. And, Steiner talks about man will continue to look for technology outside of themselves until they realize that the technology was inside of themselves the whole time. The question will be, will they figure that out before they destroy themselves? And I think that that's really the place we're at right now.
Do you think it's possible that we're AI that doesn't know it, that's just been super convinced of a reality and that we exist in this place as organic beings with mythology and all?
I mean, AI says artificial intelligence. I think what we are is the official intelligence. We are the heart official intelligence. We are the intelligence. We are the intelligence. We're so focused on the internet instead of focused on the internet. We are so focused on cell phones and Wi-Fi instead of connecting with the wireless technology we have in the cells in our bodies. Everything we're looking for on the outside has the ability to be replicated on the inside. I mean, if you study ancient civilizations, they were way more evolved in a lot of ways than we are. We've evolved in a lot of ways. We still don't know how the pyramids were made. We don't know. We literally don't know how they made the pyramids. I mean, with all the technology that we have, incredible technology that's expanding at like the most ridiculous rate, we have more access to information in one 24-hour day than we had in an entire lifetime 100 years ago. Think about that. We'll have more content on the internet today than we would have had in an entire lifetime if we lived in the 1800s, let's say. That's mind-boggling.
Well, it is, but it's a lot of useless stuff too, don't you think?
I do think so, because noise. I think what's happening is, if we think about this AI, if we think about these algorithms that we're exposed to, they're giving us more and more information about less and less. When you're in investing, right, it's so easy to have confirmation bias. You put a trade on and you're in an investment, and then no matter what the signs and signals are that are telling you it's going wrong, you have this confirmation bias where you find ways to reaffirm your belief systems and stay married to this idea, even though it's clearly not working for you. You find these ways to support your belief systems. The same things are happening when we go on our phone every day. Our phone is giving us a very specific algorithm of data, specifically designed for what it knows we want to look at. If we like one branch of politics, it'll give us more and more of that. So we keep clicking and clicking and clicking until we realize we know more and more about less and less, until we know absolutely everything about absolutely nothing. And so we have to be willing to question. We have to be willing to use questioning as a meta skill, to look deeply at all facets of life, look in other people's shoes, look at all sides of the tree, look at all the facets of a crystal, and so forth. Be willing to actually go and search the internet for things that aren't just being given to us as clickbait, and really question all of our belief systems and ways of looking at things. Because if not, we're not going to really be able to ever find the truth. And the other thing about that, I'll just say one more thing. There is so much on the internet that holds both sides of the coin to any topic. You can get just as much information that going in a cold plunge is bad for you as it will say that it's good for you. Some people say you should only take hot showers. Some people say you should only take cold showers.
Experts, by the way, experts on both sides say this. Oh, I'm an expert. I went to XYZ. Dudes that graduated side by side, same grades, same everything, same degrees, same teachers, same everything. Tell you two completely different things. Which one do you listen to?
There's so many things. I mean, how many things say vaccinations are this way or that way? How many things say medications are this way or that way? The list goes on. There are experts, highly accredited experts in every field saying the exact opposite things on everything.
Everything.
And so ultimately what that comes down to is that if you really want to know, you have to have a relationship with your inner self. Because the only way to know the things is to get your hands dirty and see what works for you. Step into a cold shower, see how you feel. Step into a warm shower, see how you feel. Try out a food, see how you feel. Try out an exercise, see how you feel. You have to be able to use the intelligence of your own heart, know yourself, have what works for me. And if you don't have that and you just keep giving over your power to everybody else, you're going to be constantly confused and you're never going to find your way because there's too much information out there. A lot of it's censored anyway, but even if you did have access to it, there's enough on either side of the coin that you can spend the rest of your life trying to figure it out. The only way out is within.
This is why we focus so much on discernment, man. This is why like the options are there, that extreme polarization with those confirmation biases in either direction. That's why we focus on discernment. That's like the main thing here. Just give you back to you, and then you can tell you what you like. We did the damn cold plunge, but my wife and I did not care for it, dude. But we did it. You know what I mean? It was this mindset. It was this thing. We went for the entire 3 minutes and we both dunked our head underwater. We did the most that was asked of us to prove that we could tame our inner bitch, as they say. And then same thing on the breath work. I was hold my breath for 2 minutes, dude. That dude would get to the end of his count and I'd be like, was that 2 minutes? I'm sitting here like thinking I'm dying. But then again, it's this mental idea. But again, to the cold thing, I think my wife and I figured out, you know what? We've got people for the cold stuff, but we're more sauna people, and that we don't have anything to prove beyond that, right? Because the two people you impress, the 5-year-old you and the 85-year-old you, and we did the shit out of that. And we feel great about it. I'm sure there's tons of experts on both sides. We, from having our personal experience, are number one, extremely proud of ourselves in that moment. And everyone that did it, by the way, there's so many people that participated in that. And you putting your ankles in that damn thing. Anybody that wanted to do that was huge. But again, it's like these things that alchemize in a certain way. And it's never about the thing, right? It's always about you overcoming it in a way that then you scale up to everything else in life, which is fascinating.
Just one thing you say there. Well, two things. One is that you did exactly what you were supposed to do, which was try it out. Mm-hmm. And now you have had a direct experience and now you know for yourself.
And we got a good job, an attaboy and good job Texas from Darren Grimes of Grimerica, who's a Canadian, by the way. And so we got an attaboy from Darren Grimes and both of us looked at each other. We're like, cool, done. Yeah. We're good. Yeah. If we needed external validation, we more than got it, which we didn't.
The other thing you said, which was very, very profound, which is a very important teaching of somebody I work with who's a Hawaiian kahuna named Harry Uhani Jim. And if you could bring your 5-year-old and your 85-year-old to work with you every day, those would be your two greatest assets.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Check in with your inner self. Hey, today we're going to have some fun today. What do you want to do? I got your back. Let's do this together. Let's have some fun. Let's live out our dream. Let's play today. And bring your 5-year-old with you. And at the same time, make sure to talk to that 85-year-old and say, what are you going to think about this decision when we're there? And realizing that we have access to both of those in the timeline now. Yeah. The 5-year-old us and the 85-year-old us. And we need to connect in the moment to both ends of those spectrums of our life. And when we do that, we can have really profound awareness to what to do now in this moment. And the Hawaiians call that vertical time. We're living in this horizontal time, but when we get still enough, when we breathe, we can access vertical time. And in those moments, we can access the 5-year-old and the 85-year-old.
It makes more sense to visualize it that way anyway, because of the way we visualize ascension in a spiral, but an ascending spiral. And so it's you at any point in that spiral, because not 100% of the 5-year-old version of you needs to be aware that you're doing all this cool shit. 5-year-old me got some cool shit within that year period, but there's a part on that spiral that we all, and I kind of have, if you look top down at it, had a cardinal direction for it. So whenever you go to the south of this, as you pass that on the spiral, you have things to overcome or that you're challenged by or things like that. Then you go through these periods of elation and then any season in between, but it's a spiral, right? And so that 5-year-old version of you that was at that challenging time that was like, hey, dude, this isn't safe. That's the one you bring along and you say, hey, buddy, yep, we're right here. And the 85-year-old version of you check in. And so I love that, again, that visual, more referenced point of it, because there are those that whenever you're on that side of the spiral from the perspective you're on, God, it makes so much more sense this way, Jason. Just follow me on this, because then it lines up like a pole on the outside of it. Like if you look at it top down, you've got 4 rods that run down, and these are like experiential kind of electromagnetic areas. So where you will feel this, but then it dips away like a moon or something like that as it orbits around. But again, in a vertical ascension throughout your linear life, we'll say, but a vertical life. I love this. And then as you go past that rod, you get an energetic send up that rod from all of the versions of you that encountered that cycle where they felt a lot of fear, unworthiness, anything like that. And so it's in your, those moments of you that connection to those parts of you, man, in your scariest moments along that axis. That's an interesting thing, dude.
It reminds me of the Kundalini symbol.
Yes, the Caduceus,
which is interestingly the symbol of the medical system.
Yep.
And how far they've actually come from actually following that model of the symbol that they have.
Right. Yeah.
Right
in your face, isn't it?
On their white coats, Yeah.
It's so interesting, dude. Okay, so do you mind telling your actually, okay, I want to do 2 more things before we wrap up here, and then we'll call it for this one, but we got so many things to talk about, dude. Of course, guys, again, all the ways to find him located in the show notes. Cannot thank you enough in advance. So do you mind telling us your Alex Gray story?
Yeah, well, Alex Gray.
Because he did, for anybody who's not, just real quick, anybody who's not familiar, he did the art for Tool's Enema, their whole album back in the 90s. I mean, dude, I love Alex Gray. He's gone well beyond that, but I didn't know if that's probably a cultural reference to where some people can see that art. And it's the eyes. They did a few of their albums, right?
Yeah.
I want to say all of them after Enema, right?
Yeah, I'm going to send you, I don't know if I could drop this in the chat right now. It doesn't matter. I'll include a picture for you for the show notes of me standing in front of the art. But yeah, so here's the story in a nutshell. I was living in New York City. This is before I moved to upstate New York. And I started getting I was still working on Wall Street. I started getting more and more into art and these things. And I got turned on just a flirt really of, that's Alex Gray, guys. It's like incredible. And so I reached out to his office and I said, hey, I don't know what the deal is, but if Alex is ever available to do a commission, I'd be interested in buying a piece of art. I'm not really a big art collector, but I want to get interested in this. I was making a lot of money on Wall Street and I was like, this sounds like a really cool thing to get into. So they said, all right, we'll put you on the waiting list, talk to you later. So years go by. I totally forget about it. I move upstate with my 2 girls. I have 3 kids now, but I had 2 girls at the time and my ex-wife. We move upstate and I was going through a very difficult time with my ex-wife. I don't want to divulge too much information for her privacy, but there was a lot of mental health issues and it was a very challenging time for our family. And I just got in the car one day with my 2 girls and I started driving. And I didn't know where I was going. And I never had this experience before. It's like one of those things from a movie, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm doing this driving thing. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just driving. But I just needed to get out of the house. I start driving south from upstate New York. And I just get this idea. I'm like, well, I think Alex Gray's property is somewhere around here. And I look it up. I'm like, Cosm, Chapel Sacred Mirrors. And it's like 30 minutes from where I am. I'm like, I'm just going to fucking go. So we drive there. Now I'm at this place. I'm with my 2 kids. We're in his mushroom cafe. We're having these Rishi teas. And I just go over to the barista that was working this cafe. And I'm like, hey, I don't know what the deal is, but if Alex is here, I'm on the wait list for commission. I reached out to him years ago. I just love to say hello. And it's one of those things yeah, okay, right. He's just going to come down. Shit. 15 minutes later, him and his wife, Allison, come down to meet me and my 2 girls, and they couldn't be any cooler. They invite us to lunch with the staff, and we're hanging out, and we're talking about art. They take us on a tour of his whole property. They bring us up to their house, and now I'm hanging out in his art studio with my 2 girls. Allison's reading storybooks to my kids. I'm sitting there with Alex looking through these books, this book that Terence McKenna gave him about like hieroglyphic mushroom wall art in caves. And like, I'm like surrounded by his paintings that he's working on. And I'm like, this is like, it was like the most amazing day of my life. It felt so amazing that I on this terrible, terrible day, I could find such greatness and such beauty and such support from a person like that. So that was just like this deep heart connection. And I said to him, I was like, Alex, we got to do this thing, you know? So he said, all right, I'll let you know when I'm ready. So 6 months go by and I'm going through a divorce now. And of course he calls me up and says, all right, you're up. And I said, dude, Alex, I'm going through a divorce, man. I can't do this right now. I'm like, I can't be buying, you know, psychedelic art, like when my books are open and we're going through this stuff and whatever. So he was super cool and stayed with me for like 2 years, checking up on me through that time, like emailing me on Christmas, like super nice, man. And so I met my new partner, Kara, you know, we're married now, we have a son. And I kept hearing this voice, like, go back to Alex in my head. And I said, you know what? I'm in a different place now. I just got through this divorce. I'm in a kind of retiring from Wall Street. I'm not really thinking about that kind of like investing in big things like that, but something just kept calling me. So I called him up. I said, let's get together. I go down to his house. I bring my volcano vaporizer. And Alex, you know, he's a big smoker, but he likes to smoke like, you know, papers and things. And I was like, dude, you got to learn how to use the vaporizer. So I'm like showing him all these concoctions and I have my vaporizer and he's loving it. And I said to him, I go, look, I just went through this experience that I could only describe as no tree can reach to heaven until its roots reach to hell. The same thing I mentioned earlier. I said, I just keep seeing this vision of a man like reaching up with a man reaching down. And he goes, you're not going to fucking believe this. But in like 1997, I drew a sketch of this in this notebook. And he has like everything for the last like 65 years that he's ever drawn since he was like 5, which is just like incredible. They have everything. Every little napkin he wrote on is chronicled. He pulls out this notebook and it was, you can see this online, a sketch of the art. And I'm like, bro, we got to do this. So he goes, all right, give me a year. So I said, yeah, no worries. So I leave his house. We had this beautiful dinner and COVID comes on. Not bugging him. I don't hear from him for a year. Finally, a year goes by and he calls me and he says, look, I got some good news for you and some bad news. I was like, all right, what is it? He goes, well, the bad news is I haven't started the painting yet. I was like, really? I go, what's the good news? He goes, the good news is that Tool wants to put it on their album, Fear Inoculum, and take it around the world on a world tour. And it's the most famous painting I've ever done that I have never even painted yet. So, you know, long story short, he had done a small, he'd showed it to I can't remember the lead singer of Tool's name. He showed it to Maynard. He showed it to Maynard and Maynard's like, I fucking love this. They had come out with Fear Inoculum, was their first album in 10 years. They wanted to use it not only for the cover in their album, but like for all of the art that was on their world tour, like all of the digital art behind the screen. They made this exclusive album that had this like 5-minute video of this figure that they called DM Turner for DMT. And it was like, it was incredible. And so he spent the next year working on the painting and it finally was finished. And it's an absolute masterpiece. And, you know, it was supposed to be like for my home. And I realized that this thing actually needs to be shared with the world. And so finally, their visionary art museum called Entheon is opening up the beginning of June in Wappingers Falls, New York. And this art piece, as well as other memorabilia that I have that's Tool related and the Great Turn that I also own, will be on display for the world to see and experience live. And so that's essentially the whole story.
What an incredible story. Where's the album? Is this it?
That's the painting. And then
Yeah, the album cover, well, it went to something else. Audio only audience, we're pulling it up here. Linked below in the show notes is this video thing that we're doing here.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. If you just look at The Great Turn online, you can see there's a YouTube video of Alex talking about it. There's the art piece itself. There's different renditions of it on tool posters. And if you go on YouTube and type in Fear Inoculum and look at The Great Turn, you can see little videos of the 5-minute or so movie of this figure come to life, and tons and tons and tons of graphics around that piece of art. So,
what an awesome story, dude.
You know, the thing is about that I want to get out of it for people is like following your process and not the outcome. You know, the art of detachment. Any part of that process, you know, I could have said this thing got screwed up. I'm just following my instincts to calling him. I'm following my instincts to show up on that particular day. I'm staying with the process when things go wrong, staying connected to him. If any one of those things had happened, if I didn't get divorced and I didn't have that period of time and he called me then and did that art piece, I would have done it. It would not have been The Great Turn. It would not have been on the Tool album and would not have been on the world stage. It wouldn't have been created during COVID when he was quarantined in his house for a year only with this painting. So the reality is like, we can only focus on if we drive well. We can't focus on if we're going to get pulled over if we're speeding. We don't know if we're going to get pulled over. We don't know if we're going to get a ticket if we get pulled over. We don't know what the judge is going to do. We don't actually know the outcome of everything in our life. We can only focus on our process. And when we stay true to what's really meaningful for us and follow our heart and follow our bliss and stay detached from the timing of things, you get led to places like this, where the outcome is beyond what you could have ever have imagined for yourself.
The biggest manifestation hack I've been sharing with folks lately is my personal one, because all I can share is what I use, right? With confidence. And that is to be I've been just simply manifesting pure alignment with the highest authenticity, elation, and service that I can provide. And those three things in that order: authenticity, elation, and service. And that's it. I've cast that net, and that's where I'm at with it now. The specificity of it, I'm not concerned with, because I know I trust my higher self, or whatever has been doing this thing, whatever label you want to put on that. I am in absolute stream flow with that thing, and I am in full surrender with how it loves to surprise me, because I love how it loves to surprise me with shit like this conversation right here. Dude, that's a fascinating story about Alex. I've been a fan of his work. I mean, since the 90s, since you've seen it on the Tool work. And then when I was doing psychedelics, you're just sitting here staring at these things in the CD square, you know, and you're just like, oh my God. And the CD itself, you know,
He has an ability to show what we all experience on psychedelic journeys, but actually put it to paper.
Yeah.
You know, if I could actually had the skills to what I see in a journey to put it, you know, into the paintbrush, into the paper, you know, I'd be Alex Gray, essentially. That's essentially what he does. He can actually not only see these incredible things that many of us actually have shared experiences of, but can actually put it down on paper in such detail that it boggles my mind. It's an incredible. And, you know, beyond that, I have to say, he is him and his wife, they're incredible people. And, you know, that means more to me than anything, you know, it really does. Like, I just met some beautiful people there that really cared about me. And that was really touching. And, you know, I'll never forget that.
Well, and that's beautiful as well, because I've heard things about Alex and his wife that our people have their own opinion about what they see him doing, which I think I feel is a misapprehension of what's going on. It's not the real truth. They probably see some of his art and say, oh my God, or to see some of the things they did. Like I caught a piece of a Halloween special him and his wife did. I want to say it was on TikTok or something random. Yeah. And they were dressed like skeletons. Well, they were just celebrating, you know, the thing, but then people were like, oh, they're satanic. But I mean, look at his art, you know, it's absolutely beautiful. And anyone who's been in a psychedelic journey can view it as that. I don't look at that as anything satanic. That's nothing like hell and brimstone that the Bible talks about. That's a psychedelic journey to me. I've met some of those folks in the DMT realm and they're awesome. Like, they look like that. They're badass. So it's just an interesting thing that whenever folks start attacking someone personally, I feel that that's interesting instead of their art, but I feel it has to do with their inability to interpret the art from an honest perspective with themselves, or, you know, just ignorance, which throws it on the person, you know, and his wife and all that stuff. And live unconventionally, but dude, look at what they're doing. This is fascinating. But again, the fact that you have had personal contact, I trust your judgment. You said they were great. That's another one of those stigmas that I'm grateful that you've cleared up. So thank you. Not that it mattered, but I just had heard it. So,
people look at the tarot and they think it's devil worship. Yeah. I mean, anything that people don't understand, everyone's constantly trying to put everything into a box and try to understand things that they don't know. And anything that we don't understand and we don't know, we try to put a label on it. And, my experience is that he's one of the most beautiful souls I've ever met.
What? You just sent me some of these. I'm going to include these in the video version. I'm not going to share them now because Mercury's in retrograde. A minute ago, I turned the damn thing off. So I'm going to share these. But dude, this is awesome. I mean,
yeah, that's me. That's me with my buddy Ben Stewart. I don't know if you know Ben, but he'd be a great guy for you to meet. And I just grabbed these quick. I'll send you kind of cleaner versions of those. But that's when Ben Stewart is a good buddy of mine, and he made many awesome movies called DMT Quest and Zeitgeist, and
he made Zeitgeist.
Yeah, and
get the fuck out of here,
and a few other ones.
Okay, we'll talk.
On Gaia TV, Limitless, and Psychedelica. You should definitely connect with him. He's got a great podcast called Awakening Infinity News, and he had made this great video called DMT Quest, and he was coming to visit me. We're friends, and I brought him down to meet Alex and see the painting. So that was why he's in that picture.
100%, dude. And Zeitgeist is one of my biggest awakenings to everything here, to everything. So that would be an absolute honor. Huge. And of course, like we're in, of course, energy. So of course it makes 100% sense. So look forward to that, audience. I'm super pumped about it. And thank you, Jason. Okay, so let's wrap this bad boy up here, but I'd like to do it with a positive spin. So we're about empowerment here. So let folks know what gets you out of bed every morning and give us something to look forward to.
Oh man, what gets me out of bed every morning and looks me something to look forward to? I mean, personally, I love what I absolutely do. But one of the things that I think is just really helpful for people is actually a trading analogy that I learned, which was called "the trend is your friend." And this is a simple thing, but when you're investing, if it's a predominantly bull market, let's just say, which means the market's going up, for those of you that don't know what that means, or a bear market, the market's trending down, more often than not, it's profitable to go with the prevailing trend. But one of the things that I think can be really important to realize is that the trend of each action of our day can become our friend. When we wake up in the morning, if we're working with our dreams, if we're checking our morning heart rate and checking into tapping into the deeper parts of ourselves and seeing how what we did yesterday is affecting actually our heartbeat of today, if we're actually taking a breath and asking ourselves, what is the greatest ideal of myself today? What is the greatest version of myself today? What's something new I can experience today? Take a mindful step out of bed and start to begin to create a momentum towards the life we want instead of the life we don't. Instead of waking up and the first thing you do, checking your phone, getting blasted with blue light, seeing a bill, seeing a text message, seeing something stressful at work, rushing out of bed to your alarm clock, getting into a fight with your partner, getting into some road rage, etc. Each little moment builds on itself. And if we start thinking about the momentum, I think it can be a very, very helpful thing. I like to wake up in the morning, each morning. It can be difficult, I know, because I have 3 kids and sometimes they can derail that. But to the best of my ability, I try to create a vibe of sensuality. I think about, like, let's say I was going to make love with my wife. Maybe I dim the lights. Maybe I play some beautiful music. I light a candle. I light some incense. I put some scent. I'd have a beautiful flower. I want to create that for myself. I go into my meditation room. I do a meditation or I chant, but I create this vibe, this fragrance, this sensual experience for myself. And I create the vibe and I create a momentum for my day that no matter what happens, I've created enough of this. I'm so locked into this frequency that no matter what life throws at me, I will not forget. I will always remember and never forget who I am, what I stand for, and be attached and connected to my deeper spirit. Now, whatever form that is for you, that's great. That's knowing yourself. I'm not telling you to do any of the things that I do, but what I'm suggesting to you is start from the first step out of bed with a mindful step, thinking about creating the day you want to create and not creating Groundhog Day, not creating what happened yesterday, having yesterday equals today and today equals tomorrow. That's anxiety equal depression. Creating a new life with the first step out of bed. And, that has worked for me, is focusing on that momentum. I'll leave you with this. In A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, he talks about Jews being walked into the concentration camp gas chambers, singing and chanting songs praising life. That really sent me on a deep meditation. And I realized is that what they were showing there, what they were exhibiting, was true abundance. That no matter what life throws at you, even being walked out of your circumstances in a concentration camp into the gas chamber for your last breath against your will, that despite that, you're going to sing yes to life. That no matter what anyone does to you, they can even take away your life, they won't take away your spirit. Now, that's a very high place to evolve to, and I can't say that I have that. I have to remind myself of that 500 times a day. With each breath, I'm remembering that. But like going to the gym, the more we can come back to that, the more we can come back to that place of singing yes to life, of knowing who we really are, despite every circumstance, the more and more abundant we become.
Absolutely incredible, my friend. Absolutely incredible. Something that you were saying there that I was inspired to do, a little silly, but I think that this will be a great mantra and it'll be remembered. It's the moment and momentum. Moment. So you have the moment. Like it's your, I'm in the moment. But it creates your momentum, right? So everything is just a series of moments you create from your moment of now. And so this cherishing of each one of them that do build on one another. And I could not agree with you more. I do a bit of coaching, and that's my biggest thing is no phone for the first hour. Huge. Yeah. Absolutely huge. Replace it with reading, journaling, practice, workout, anything else. Just none of that for the same exact reasons, man, because it jacks you of your momentum, right? Yeah. So hang on to that moment. It's that's nice. Yeah. Jason, dude, I can't thank you enough. We have so many more conversations to have. I'm looking forward to every fucking one of them, dude. You're just a brother. This time, and of course you're incredible. So all the ways to find you located down in the show notes, my friend. Truly grateful.
I love you, brother. Thank you for the opportunity. It was my absolute honor, privilege, and pleasure. And just to your audience, I'd love to connect with any of you. Feel free to reach out, hit me up on Instagram. That's probably the best way to find me. And I'd love to just participate in your life and see if I can help you in any way. And it's just really great to be a part of this expanding reality audience. And I'm looking forward to a bright future together. So thank you.
Just want to take a moment here and thank our dear friend Jason Pickard for coming by and spreading that love. He is a wealth of knowledge, pun intended there. Shit, why not? Check all the show description links down there for all the ways to find him, guys. Absolutely fascinating. Reach out if you feel so compelled. He is a sweetheart and again, wealth of knowledge. Also located down there are our resource links. If you guys have been compelled to grow a little bit of food in your front yard, Food Forest Abundance is down there. If you've gotten contacted by something of the freaky woo-woo nature and you're just not who to tell, Opus, the organization for paranormal understanding and support, it's fucking down there. As well, if you really want to level up, the Manifestors guy, Dewey Taylor. This is my secret, guys, and it's not a secret. It's a link right down in there titled The Manifestors Guide. Check it out. While you're down there as well, check out the link titled expandingrealitypodcast.com. That is where all of our stuff can be found. You can link there from any of the socials, all that good stuff. But as well, that is where you can support the mission. And this is a value exchange system we got going on here. So any value that you find that you'd like to participate in with this, please feel free to do so. We always love the engaging and sharing. And if you want to take it to the next level, we have all the options available for you down there as well. That includes the Expansive Insider. Now, that's where all the bonus stuff is at. We're doing these lives now, live interviews with Q&As after. Just come hang out with us. And if that sounds like something you'd like to do, link's down there. So go out into this incredibly beautiful and amazing place, guys. It's a wealth of awesomeness out here. So while you're imbibing in all of that, why not just pick up a piece of litter and make it prettier to look at, right? Be nice to everybody you come across, which isn't given, but it's nice to hear. As well, if you got somebody in line around you, get their coffee, pick up the coffee of the dude behind you or in front of you, whatever, it goes a far way. It's just this shock, this look on their face. They're like, holy shit, you're what? And it's beautiful. It's just a really nice, sweet thing, and that's why I encourage it. And it makes a way bigger impact on you, which is also why I encourage it. And some of you have already discovered this and written in, and I appreciate those, by the way. So also, while you guys are out there just crushing it at life in general, get out of the fucking left-hand lanes. That's a pain in the ass. You got somebody behind you wanting to pass as well. And above all, and then anything else, go out into this beautiful, amazing, what the fuck on the momentary basis is this? And y'all just be good to one another, That's it. Boil it all down. Be good to one another. Thank you so much for watching, listening, engaging, just being the coolest motherfucking sons of bitches ever. We'll see you next time.